Hi. So I have met quite a few interesting male leads in the last 6 months, and I wanted to make a video where I list a few of them. This list is not really about who's the best male lead or like the one that you find the most watchable or the most attractive. That's not what this list is about, because I can think of a couple right off the top of my head whom I would rank higher in terms of watchability, but who are still very traditionally written, who fall within the known archetype of male leads and aren't really interesting in a new way, so they're not on the list. Instead, this list is just about a few male leads from C-dramas and K-dramas that I have enjoyed watching on my screen, whose character development has given me some food for thought and whose existence gives me hope. Because while in this channel I have made it my business to point out flaws in storytelling pretty often, I also want to acknowledge it when writers and directors do something right with a character, or at least try and experiment in an interesting way, especially in the romance genre, where trying something new always feels like a huge risk. So I wanted to make a video where I just tell the creators that I am noticing this, and hopefully you guys can recommend me more interesting characters, not just male leads, but female leads and other staples of the genre who have been done differently in a drama. With that said, let's start this very random list. It's not ranked at all. There is no first and last. I will just add them as I think of them. And the first one I want to talk about, because I've just covered the C-drama in my last video, is Tang Qi from Filter. Now, again, I made this entire video talking about this guy, or rather how the drama is really about his arc and not the female leads at all. But I feel like I highlighted so many of his flaws that I didn't quite express how much I liked the foundation of his character, why his character kind of stuck with me despite the somewhat interesting execution. Tang Qi, as seen in the C-drama Filter, does not put his pride above the people or the projects he cares about. And we see this very early on in the drama, where he wants something and the heroine Soo Chang-chang agrees to it, but gives him a condition. And the condition is basically that he has to upload a video where he throws water on his face. It's her way of getting back at him for humiliating her during a high school reunion. He doesn't feel at all apologetic for what he had done, but he agrees to this immediately. He literally does not care that what he is uploading will result in his old classmates laughing at him. His sense of self-confidence is really grounding and even humbling. We see him soon after, during a photo shoot, where he has finally convinced this model to work for them, making a fool of himself again, because he can see that the model is really stressed out. This is her first job, and he wants her to laugh and be relaxed. So he comes to the workplace wearing a really shiny getup and just dances within her field of vision. It's an adorable thing to do. He doesn't explain himself at all, but it totally works. This same lack of self-consciousness or too much pride is what allows him to, much later on when he figures out that he was repeatedly falling for the same woman behind different faces, to be able to see the situation objectively and not feel victimized by it. Like, he quickly figures out that he was not the direct target of any lies, that he just accidentally became a casualty, and mostly through his own fault, because he became obsessed with each of the faces that Soo Chang-chang put on. And I love that. Even in the final episodes, there is a point where the female lead Soo Chang-chang is invisible, where previously she was an ordinary looking woman who was ignored or insulted. Now she's completely invisible, and that is a horrifying experience. And so he holds her hand, he walks through the public with his arm around her all the time, clearly looking like a crazy person to the wider world, but he does not care. That is a really interesting and consistent character right there. His flaw is also really interesting, though that is where the drama kind of failed in its execution. He's a highly intelligent man very self-aware about a lot of things, very observant about other people. But he believes that he doesn't care about appearance. He believes that he cares about a person's character or personality far more. So for such a person to realize through the events of the drama that he had actually held on to certain superficial values, and for all of that to fall away by the end because he's so deeply in love, that would have been such a beautiful story. And I just wanted to acknowledge that writer or team of writers, whoever you are, I saw what you were trying to do, and I wish you had gotten to tell the story exactly the way you had wanted to. Okay, next one. Ay, ay, ay. I wanted to try something new with the videos, but sweating through the entire video was not the new thing I wanted to try. Okay, found some shade. The next male lead I want to talk about is Gyeon-u from Head Over Heels. Head Over Heels is this teen romance with a shamanistic ghostly possession angle. And Gyeon-u is this teenage boy who is, I think, one of my favorite teenage boy male lead characters ever. He looks like this big, strong guy. He also has a pretty grim face for a good chunk of the first half. In terms of the story, he's basically targeted by ghosts. So a lot of misfortune follows him around. He keeps being subjected to accidents, nearly dies many times, and often just bad things happen around him. Which is bad enough, but that's not what primarily makes him miserable. What really gets him down is how humans around him, including his own parents, treat him. They basically treat him like he is the worst thing to have happened to them and don't want anything to do with him. The only person who loves him and has been raising him is his grandmom, but even that doesn't exactly last. So he has a grim life, and that reflects on his face. Usually with a character like this, you would think that he would have so much rage inside him that it would just burst out. And in stories like this, it usually bursts out at the female lead. But not Gyeon-u. He is such a sweetheart. He just implodes every time he is disappointed or angry. Now, the male lead has good reason to dislike the line of work that the teenage female lead is in, which is shamanism, because he's had a lifetime of really bad experience, abusive experience with people in that line of work, especially one shaman. So there is some conflict there, but even when he finds out what she does for work, I was completely expecting his outburst to be loud and aggressive against her, but instead he just shuts down. And of course that shutting down, as we say, is a trauma response. But it's also a way to stop himself from inflicting pain on others in the most violent way possible. And I like that he's been written this way. And not just Gyeon-u, but the second male lead and another young boy who comes into the story at a later point, they've all been written with so much empathy. I love that this drama is targeted towards teenagers and young adults, because yes, please look at these very positive examples of masculinity and make them your model and not the stuff we find on the internet most of the time. So yeah, Gyeon-u, such an absolute sweetheart. Okay, so I gave in and came indoors. I'm still trying not to be in my office, but let's see how long that lasts. Next is Eun-ho from Love Scout. I don't think I have to tell you guys why his writing was interesting. The way Lee Jun-hyuk chose to play it, his expressions, his reactions to certain things, they all seem to be intentional subversions of the typical male lead. Whether it's the fact that Eun-ho never seemed to feel as if he was demeaning himself by being the secretary, where he used to hold a pretty important job in an HR of a major company, and definitely never seemed emasculated by the fact that his boss was a woman. He took so much pride in his job, no matter what job he was doing, even if that job was just being very organized in his own home so his daughter could have the best home life possible, or how he interacted with his fellow fellow colleagues. This is not one of those male leads who just cannot hold a conversation for some reason. This is a guy who is extremely social, very hospitable, very keen to do the best job he can no matter what job you give him, and highly intelligent. Also had a lot of empathy, which allowed him to see aspects of a certain relationship that our female lead, who is this expert headhunter, sometimes missed. I also really liked that Eun-ho's empathy didn't come at the cost of the female lead. It's not that she doesn't have empathy or that she doesn't see the human story behind every case she takes on. It's that his empathy was a bonus, an additional perspective on a case. Other stuff that you really have to like about his writing is how he approached love. When he first felt attraction to the female lead, but he wasn't entirely sure he could enter into a commitment or relationship. As a father, he had to consider how entering into a new commitment would affect his daughter, if she was ready for such a thing. And so even after Han Ji-min's character confessed her feelings without any expectation, mind you. You cannot admire Eun-ho's character without also acknowledging how well balanced Ji-yoon's character was, as a perfect foil for each other. Yes, Eun-ho needed his time to figure out how he felt about her and whether he was ready to enter a commitment, but also at the same time, Ji-yoon, when she confesses her feelings to him, it's because she wants him to understand why she's suddenly distancing herself from him. And her confession didn't come with any expectation of an answer. For that matter, she makes it very clear that her feelings are her problem and not his problem. The way they negotiated their relationship from the beginning to the end, barring a slight matter in the middle, is really perfect. I even adored the ending, which if you haven't watched the drama, I don't want to spoil for you, but it was a non-traditional ending. They have a happily ever after, it's just non-traditional. I love that so much. The slight matter is one where Ji-yoon just announces to her entire company that she's dating her secretary, and it was done really suddenly without any prior discussion between the couple. It didn't faze Eun-ho, but that's not the best way to do things. A boss secretary romance has a lot of implications for other people in the workplace. It's not just about the two of you. I cannot stress that enough. A concern I'd seen on social media while Love Scout was airing by some viewers was that Eun-ho was written to be too perfect. And my counter to that would be Eun-ho was written to be a very average woman. He is empathetic, has good work ethic, takes care of his daughter really well, communicates with her really well, keeps his house organized, is a really conscientious host, does not think any job is beneath him, especially when he needs to put food on the table. And of course, certainly has absolutely no problem that the person he falls in love with holds a higher position and will likely always be someone who brings in a higher income. So, an average woman. And I want to admit this is not an original thought of mine. I saw this video, which made me think of, the perfect man.
I know this is gonna piss so many people off, but there's a popular saying on the Chinese internet says, even a top tier man is just an average woman. Someone wrote, a man who doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't cheat, doesn't gamble, no criminal records, stable job, cooks, cleans, emotionally stable, respects others, kind to his family. Isn't that kind of a man so rare? But honestly, every one of my female friends meets that standards and more.
I'll link to the video below if you want to just enjoy that in your own feed. And I couldn't agree more. All of the reasons we loved Eun-ho was because he was just meeting the bare minimum of our expectations from a father, which is just sad. It is really sad. But I still love the writing of his character in the drama because it's good to see that representation. And it's not like these men don't exist. They do. They just don't get highlighted enough. We need more Love Scout because the representation of the toxic man is just overwhelming in Dramaland. So give us more Eun-hos who cooks and cleans and takes excellent care of his daughter and really doesn't need a woman to teach him empathy, good manners, or even how to take care of a household. Next, let's talk about Suzuki Wataru, a character who was originally, by which I mean the web novel, the webtoon, and even the K-drama version, supposed to be this Clark Kent kind of dude who is hiding his identity at the workplace, and with the aid of specs and oversized coats, I guess, managing to hide his amazing looks. But the J-drama Marry My Husband completely disposes of any of this nonsense. They make Suzuki Wataru a guy who is really good looking. Everybody in his company know that he's really good looking, and they know that he is the grandson of the chairman. He is also very aware of his privileges and how he got his position in the company. So at one point when Misa is trying to explain that people know that he is very good at his job and they admire him for it, his response is pretty much, yeah, maybe, but I didn't get my position because of my skills. And that level of humility is hard to come by a chaebol hero. Go ahead and show me another one. Well, okay, maybe two. I'm sure you can find at least one. Show me two. The point is, it's rare. Usually the way they show a character like this is, yes, I got the job because of my privileges, but look at how amazing I am at my work. I'm just 900 times more intelligent than everybody else in my company, which is why I deserve to be on top. Yeah, Suzuki's not one of those. He's also not a guy who, at least until episode 8, because the last two haven't aired yet, he's also not a guy who abuses his powers. He, spoiler, travels back in time and already knows that the people who kill Misa work in the company with her. He could have easily come in as a knight in shining armor and helped her get rid of them by using all the power and riches at his disposal. He doesn't do any of that. Instead, he just stands back in an emotionally supportive role where, yes, he's there to catch her if she falls, but he's really trusting her to know what she's doing. Usually in this kind of dynamic, even when it seems like the male lead is allowing the female lead to set the pace and execute her plan, he already has backup for backups to, I don't know, support her. And no, not this time. He's not just play acting, he really is trusting Misa to know how to deal with the problems in her life. And the other thing that majorly impressed me with this character is that we don't quite know the events that led him to come back in time. That has not been revealed as yet. But no matter what, usually in these situations, the male lead simply assumes that since both of them have traveled back in time and this is his second chance, this is his chance to finally be with her, he just assumes that they're fated and she will choose to be with him. So he acts really fast to, win her over. Not Suzuki though. Not only does he hide the fact that he traveled back in time, he never pressures her with this inevitable sense of fate. I don't yet know what the reason is that Wataru is hiding the fact that he's traveled back in time from Misa to the point where he's outright lying to her and kind of gaslighting her a bit. So my assumption is that his reasons are solid. Like there is really good reason for why he's not letting her know. But an invariable side effect of this is that he's not pressuring her with an inevitable sense of fate. The possibility that her father or the ghost of her father was the one who had brought him back in time, just like he had brought her back in time, is not sitting on her shoulders telling her that she has to be with him. Instead, Wataru is actually really restrained. He leaves the field pretty clear for a rival to confess his own feelings. He does not display any nonsensical jealousy towards other men in her life. His only concern is that she should be safe and that she should not be repeating the mistakes of her first life, which he trusts her not to do. He gives her slight nudges, but aside from that, he just trusts her to make good decisions. I'm just so pleased with this characterization. There's another scene that I absolutely loved. They're having this late night, early morning conversation at a stage in their relationship where they're both kind of aware that they find each other attractive. And I think partway through, Misa dozes off and Wataru is expressing his hopes for the future. And those hopes are that he wants to get to know her and for her to get to know him. Like simple and everyday things about each other, books they like, what their taste in food is, movies that they might go and watch together. Basically, he envisions a life in the future where they get to date and like each other, like a normal couple. Again, I just come back to the fact that Wataru is not taking it for granted that the two of them will be together, or that just because the two of them have come back in time together, that it means for sure that they are supposed to end up together. They might date for a while and find they don't like each other. He seems to be leaving that possibility open, and that just makes me like his character so much. The next one, my friends, is Eun-ho from Our Unwritten Soul. Jin-young is always excellent, but I have to say I haven't liked him in a character this much in a while. Outwardly, he seems like an extremely sensible, sorted kind of guy, but I really liked how the drama highlights his flaws and his strengths. Now, Hosu has certain disabilities. He can't hear properly in one ear. He had a terrible accident when he was a child, and so he has a bit of difficulty walking. He has hearing issues, and he's always very aware that his disability marks him out as someone who is weaker, who is expected to achieve less in life, which has made him determined to do more, even if in the process he's hurting himself. Now, by the time we meet him as an adult, he seems to have outgrown that mentality to a large extent. What he hasn't been able to overcome, though, is his fear of being a burden, especially a burden to his stepmother, who has raised him since his accident killed his father. And because he was not very close to her before that accident happened, he never quite believed that she was taking care of him out of love and not out of obligation, out of pity, a way to show her love for his father. And this insecurity runs really deep in him. As a teenager, he would occasionally lash out at his stepmother, basically disavow her affections in private, tell her that she doesn't have to pretend that they are a family when it's just the two of them. But as an adult, he doesn't do the same thing. Instead, what he does is he has a sense of obligation towards her. So if she has an accident, he'll come running back to their hometown to take care of her. But he rarely visits her. He doesn't really talk to her unless she reaches out to him first. He has reduced their relationship to certain formal visits because that's what he thinks she really wants. That she would be happier if she didn't have to pretend to take care of him. It's all based off miscommunication to a large extent, which you would think would be easily resolved and is kind of easily resolved towards the end of the drama with like a couple of big conversations. But those conversations are really hard to have, especially when the mother and son have met at an age where communication is always a little difficult. Like, this is a teenage boy who's not really expressing all of his thoughts coherently, and a new mother who hasn't known him all his life is still learning to understand his moods and doesn't want to alienate him. Her caution around him makes all the sense. But anyway, the aspect of his character that I really loved is that it's Hosu's strength that he always gives other people the benefit of the doubt. He always assumes that if somebody is doing something, there must be a reason for it. And you see this displayed over and over in his conversations with Miji, especially when a character, an older woman called Rosa, comes into the picture and some odd things start cropping up about her. Miji points out that she might be lying about certain things. And even though Miji herself is lying about her identity, she has switched places with her twin sister for really good reasons. So it would have made more sense for her to see that just because somebody's lying doesn't mean that there are bad reasons for it. But that's how we kind of are. We give ourselves more rope than we give other people, especially when it comes to morality for some reason. And it's Hosu who points out that chances are that Rosa has a good reason. But he is also the one to draw the line and say she might have another reason. We don't need to know it. We don't have to go investigating. We should not be delving into her privacy unless she asks us to. And it's this ethical boundary that honestly is a huge strength in a person. It's a rarity in people, not like, it's not a men specific thing, it's just rarity in people. And this strength allows him to go along with Miji and Mire's switch, even though he's figured out that a switch happened, but not confront either of them about it for a while. Honestly, I think that made his character even more charming. The fact that he had figured it out, but he played along with them because he didn't want to embarrass Miji by pointing out that he had figured out the deception. But the other side of that strength is his greatest weakness. Hosu is intensely protective of his own weaknesses, his vulnerabilities. He's not willing to share his pain or any display of weakness, even in front of the people who care the most for him, because he's always scared of being a burden. Part of that is an excess of pride, but it's probably the same pride that also motivated him into achieving academic excellence and reach the heights in his career that he had. What motivates a character like Tang Qi, who had his own disability to work with, will not be what motivates a character like Hosu. But by the end of the drama, he learns that sometimes he has to breach somebody else's boundaries to help them, because as Miji points out, not everybody can ask for help, which of course is an excellent lesson to learn. But I do hope that Hosu, beyond the ending of the drama and into the fictional future, remains a character who is always willing to patiently wait for someone to confide in him and doesn't push his way into people's secrets as if he's entitled to know what they are. He has been so respectful throughout the drama that I just want that aspect of him to stay intact, while also being flexible enough to understand that sometimes in extreme situations he will have to cross that boundary. And that is why, yes, he is paired with the pro boundary crosser, that is Miji. She has an interesting relationship with boundaries herself, in that she assumes if there is a boundary that she cannot cross, then she is being rejected. But yeah, I hope that she learns that boundaries are there to be respected from Hosu, and Hosu learns to be a little more flexible from Miji. And with that, my friends, I think my list is pretty much done. I know I missed out on a lot of interesting male leads who I hope you tell me about in the comments below. There are plenty of dramas I haven't watched as yet, like the Tangerine one with IU. I haven't watched that one yet. And I feel pretty sure that the husband there, played by Park Bo-gum, might be brought up as an example of an interesting male lead done in a slightly different mold than usual. Like I said at the start, there are male leads that I've found really interesting to watch on my screen in the last 6 months, whom I'm not including in this list because at the end of the day, they were written in a very traditional way. They were very attractive and charismatic on screen, in large parts because of the performance of the actors playing them, but they can all be slotted in the traditional male role of the provider, the guy who's strong, who sees the woman as the one that he needs to protect at all costs, in that archetype. And so they're not on my list. Doesn't mean I didn't like them. They are, at the end of the day, variations of characters we have seen many times before. So yeah, that was my list, unranked, completely random. Tell me your list of male leads or female leads or other characters who broke the mold of their usual staple persona and impressed you in some way. All right, bye.